Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, whichever part of the world you are all in. And I'm very happy to be here and participating in this discussion about digital disruption in the agro industry. I think before we touch upon this topic, I think Shukumar introduced most of the speakers here. It's also good to have a look at how digital disruption has played a role in many other industries as well. I think we are very familiar with FMCG, finance, or e-commerce sector where digital disruption has played a key role. I don't have to explain to you how it has changed, the way we do business in these particular sectors. I think there are some common themes that you see across all these sectors, that disruption is not just one area, but it has completely taken over the value chain. That's one of the things that you will notice. You will also see that it has made life smoother, for the end users, whoever. So that's one of the value that has disruption has brought in. And I would also use the word personalization because, all the digital disruption has also a lot of focus on end customers. So it gets very personalized for the end customer or the stakeholder. So having said that, coming into the agro industry and how this is evolving in agro industry, probably agro industry is a late entrant into the entire digital disruption or digitization phase. I'd like to run you very quickly through a couple of slides to give you a context of digital disruption in the agro industry. Can you all see my slide? Okay, so I think when we talk about the digital disruption, there is always what are we doing in the industry? So if it's agriculture, we are, farmers are producing vegetables and they are selling vegetables. There's an entire agro value chain that provides product and services to this industry. I think that is not changing. So the what part of the business pretty much remains the same with any kind of disruption. But I think the how is changing very fast with digital disruption. So you will see that with any form of digital disruption, there is always a value chain that is getting digitized. There is more focus on services than just products, right? So it's an enhancement to selling services versus product. And of course, it is also consolidating the entire value chain in the process. Now, what is it really driving that change or that transformation or what we call as a disruption? I think that's the how part of it. So if you look at the how, has to really get smoother for the farmer or for the end, stakeholders. So in the agro space, you will see that there is always this, discussion about farm in the box. So you have one-stop solution for the farmer, so he doesn't have to run around. He's at the center of, the digital disruption that is happening. Definitely, it has to provide better yield and better income. That's another key aspects of that transformation. It reduces the risk as well. So if you look at today, specifically the smallholder farm, in the Asian region, there is a lot of risk involved in the agro value chain business itself. So there is, of course, climatic conditions. There are, food price guarantees that are not available for the outputs. There is pest and diseases. So there's a lot of all this risk is pretty much carried today by the farmers. I think reducing the risk is one of the key things that digitization provides. And I spoke initially, personalization also becomes very important, because if I'm a tomato farmer, I need to get a service which is very personalized to me in terms of, what can I do better in that particular area. So I think that is the crux of how digitization works and the value chain and the key contributors to it. So if you look at very specifically in the agro, what are those key values that are provided by the, digital disruption? So here I have tried to map a couple of digital enablers. If you see here, mobile, cloud, all these are. So I don't have to go. You basically know there is satellite imagery and sensors becoming more relevant these days, and it is affecting the entire value chain, whether it is planning to agro inputs to production to processing and ultimately to the market linkage. So you can see the key processes that are getting impacted by the digitization. So it could be automation, it could be traceability, it could be digitizing the logistics part so that there is more visibility on how the materials are moving. And another key important thing is agronomy itself, right? Providing the right inputs at the right time is some of the digital enablers as well. Now, to the left of here, you will see the key stakeholders. You have farmers involved in this entire value chain. There is agri-tech firms that are involved, who is actually taking care of the digitization. Then, of course, you have the agro input providers. It could be seed companies, it could be agrochemical companies, agronomy services. So there are many input providers that are there. And ultimately, you have the end customer and the output aggregators as well. I think if you try to summarize the value of all this, I think to the farmer, it's always a better income at a reduced risk. I think that's a value that digitization can bring when you digitize the entire value chain. I think to the agri-tech firms who is enabling this entire process, I think for them, it's about data, aggregation of that data. I think it wins the farmer loyalty, and also it helps them to understand the farmer better. To an input service provider, it is the insight that is provided by the entire digitization. So the insight makes them to have the right product at the right time, at the right place. And also it makes them, excuse me, it takes them, gives them a faster time to market concept as well. I think additional to this, if you look at the consumers and the output aggregators, I think it's quality assurance and the capability to trace, traceability, etc., becomes a key aspect here. So I think that's all what I wanted to share in terms of the high level, how the digital disruption is playing in the agro industry. Excuse me for my bad throat. So there are a couple of points that we want to focus during this session, and one of them key being the adoption of these digital technologies. Because if you look at the smallholder farmers, we are in the Southeast Asian market, we are quite disorganized. There are a lot of challenges, both geographical as well as technological. So adoption and discussing all the challenges around these technologies is also very important, because that also plays a role. And prioritizing what kind of technologies should be taken up first and which can have a bigger impact to the farmers is also very important. So Deepak Pareek was introduced here before as a person who has got a lot of knowledge around moving around in the country, trying to understand what is happening around digital technologies. I would invite Deepak to share his thoughts on how he thinks the digital adoption is moving ahead and what are the challenges that he sees in this specific area.